We have got major breaking news for you after many decades of protests. Victory. Miami Seaquarium is closing. You're looking at just some of the headlines. Troubled Miami Seaquarium ordered to close after high profile animal deaths. County terminates lease with Miami Seaquarium after safety of animals questioned. This is massive breaking news right up there with the closure, for example, of animal circuses when a Ringling Brothers, Barnum and Bailey closed. Now, People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals has been protesting for decades. Okay, this is footage I shot in 2015 when I went down to Miami Seaquarium to participate and report on a protest against the captivity of Lolita in particular. And there we were, just begging those people in that sightseeing bus, do not go to Miami Seaquarium. Hundreds, maybe even more than 1,000 people attended this protest. PETA was all over it. Unfortunately, tragically, Lolita, who was trapped in a tiny cramped cage, a tiny, tiny pen the size of a bathtub, equivalent for humans, died last year before being able to see this beautiful moment. It's really sad that she did not get to see this moment. The Miami Seaquarium's reign of cruelty is, however, now coming to an end. Animals like Lolita, who were exploited, suffered, and died, will suffer no more. We hope. We're going to go straight out to one of the leaders of this movement, Amanda Brody, with People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals. Amanda, how big is this breaking news?
Hi, thank you so much for having me. This is huge news. This is a historic move in the animal rights movement, and PETA is just so happy that the Miami-Dade County is finally terminating the Miami Seaquarium's lease after more than half of a century of miserable animals and false promises to clean up its act. For years, PETA and local activists worked tirelessly to help Lolita and other animals suffering terribly at the Miami Seaquarium through a relentless campaign, which included lawsuits on behalf of Lolita, celebrity ad campaigns, and of course, many, many, many protests. So the world can finally cheer that help is on the way for these animals.
Lolita was only 4 years old when she was abducted from her family and ocean home for more than half a century. She suffered in the smallest orca tank in the world. Decade after decade, Lolita was forced to perform frivolous tricks at Miami Seaquarium, but now the exploitation is over. Victory! Victory for all the animals there. So we're going to discuss what happens to the animals now, how many were left. But first, let's get into a little bit of what the heck was going on and is going on. 2-inch nail found in dolphin's throat. That's one of the PETA signs. And I can tell you that here is a USDA inspection report. This goes on for 6 or 7 pages, people. I'm just going to give you one tiny tidbit. On 9/26/23, the medical record for Sushi, an adult female California sea lion, stated that she had been holding her right eye closed and rubbing both eyes. The vet plan in the record involved stressing the importance of getting her cataract surgery scheduled soon with an external specialist. However, the facility did not take initial steps to schedule a procedure. Then on a later date, the medical record states Sushi was slow to eat. The plan again stressed the importance of scheduling cataract surgery. Then on 10/11/23, Sushi began refusing food. By 10/15/23, and throughout the 3-day USDA inspection report, she was completely refusing food due to eye pain per medical records. That is just one example. Wow. In your estimation, how bad did it get?
It was so bad. I mean, the Miami Seaquarium just continued to prove itself either unwilling or unable to comply with even the minimum standards of the Federal Animal Welfare Act, which was putting it in violation of its lease with the Miami-Dade County. And these citations just kept racking up with the USDA. So some of the other things we found, like you mentioned, a dolphin had a 2-inch nail stuck in his throat. Another dolphin was kicked in the mouth during an interaction with a guest. These animals were denied proper veterinary care. And we even found earlier that, dolphins were starved in order to force them to perform tricks for food. So things just kept racking up for the Miami Seaquarium, and we're so glad that the Miami-Dade County took notice, took action, and decided to terminate the lease.
By the way, we invite Miami Seaquarium on at any time to respond. Media has been trying to get in touch with the owners and have gotten no comment thus far, but they have a standing invitation. I got to tell you personally, this victory brings tears to my eyes. Back in 2015, I was among many thousands of people who attended a protest. I spoke, and let's listen to that protest, me and other speakers, and talk about it on the other side.
Seaquarium is on the wrong side of history. Lolita is in danger. Lolita is in danger. Lolita is in danger. Lolita is in danger. Lolita is in danger.
There are so many animals around the world who are being held captive against their will for the name of entertainment. These animals exist for their own purposes. They were not put on this earth to entertain us.
Amen.
It's time to let this girl. She's been held too long. I said it's time. You know it's time to let Miss Lolita go home. Let the girl go. Free Lolita. Free Lolita. Let the girl go.
That moment brings tears to my eyes for a couple of reasons. That woman, Robin Camille, became a close friend of mine after meeting her at that protest. She's the one who wrote the song, Free Lolita, Let the Girl Go. And she died. She died fighting to free Lolita before knowing about this, knowing that Aquarium is closing down. And it brings up tears because Lolita died after more than a half a century in captivity. Lolita died just this past summer, and she never made it to freedom. It breaks my heart. It breaks my heart. So many people sacrifice so much to have this moment. We need to honor those people like Robin Camille who fought. Amanda.
Yeah, I mean, so many people have worked tirelessly for Lolita and the other animals, and there were plans in place to send Lolita to a seaside sanctuary, but those plans unfortunately came too late for her. So it's just really tragic. The entire world was devastated when Lolita died in August. She's been 53 years in the world's smallest orca tank at Miami Seaquarium. She was without the companionship of another orca since 1980. Her tankmate Hugo died after supposedly smashing his head into the side of the tank right there at Miami Seaquarium. Her life was so tragic. She deserved so much more. And that's why we're really asking everyone to honor her memory, and anyone else who maybe has passed and who worked tirelessly for Lolita, honor them by never buying a ticket to a marine park that imprisons animals like Miami Seaquarium or SeaWorld.
All right, we have a caller, Nilofar in Dallas, Texas. Your question or thought for Amanda Brody of People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals.
Hi, Amanda. It's such a pleasure. I met you a couple of years ago when you came down to Texas in order to lead the protest against the Shiner potentate in Tyler, Texas. First of all, a major congratulations on this victory. On the cusp of this initial victory, is Seaquarium allowing professionals to come in and administer care? And do you get a feeling that they would be willing to surrender these prisoners to a sanctuary?
Very good question. What happens to the rest of the animals, and are we going to get a fight from Miami Seaquarium?
Yeah, and PETA is urging the county to act swiftly to ensure that these animals are sent to reputable facilities where they can get the care that they desperately need. PETA stands ready to assist them in ensuring that these animals don't go to similar or even worse environments. It's a very dire situation for these animals at the Miami Seaquarium, but thankfully, the Miami-Dade County is the one who operates this lease, and they have decided to terminate the Miami Seaquarium's lease. So we are hopeful that they're doing everything that they can to ensure that these animals go to a proper facility where they can get the care that they need, and PETA's ready to help them.
And just to bring you up to date, because this is breaking news, the Miami-Dade Commission just this past Thursday served eviction papers on the dolphin company, owners of the troubled Miami Seaquarium. By the way, they are invited on anytime to respond to anything we have to say or PETA has to say. They are being demanded to vacate the county-owned facility in Key Biscayne by April 21st. A letter sent by the Miami-Dade Commission's chief operating officer cited numerous and significant violations of the lease agreement, which he said represented a complete disregard for the safety of the animals housed on the premises. Lease's long and troubled history of violations constitute repeated, continuing, long-standing violations of their contractual obligations and to comply with all laws. The deficient and dangerous conditions that Lease has allowed to persist on the premises in many instances has resulted in injury to the animals and the animals' ingestion of foreign materials. And you were telling me that the chief vet resigned recently. Tell me about that.
Yeah, the Miami Seaquarium has had a high turnover of veterinarians, and most recently, their last veterinarian on staff resigned. And while apparently the Miami Seaquarium has hired a new veterinarian, we know that no veterinarian can fix the systematic issues that are occurring at this facility, which is basically a dump. But previously, the USDA had cited the Miami Seaquarium for only having one veterinarian on staff to care for 46 marine mammals, 50 birds, and hundreds of fish, which delayed routine exams for months for these animals. So now we're hearing apparently their current veterinarian is someone who worked at Dolphinarius, Arizona, which closed after several dolphins died in short succession.
Again, any of the companies mentioned, we invite on. This is breaking news, information just coming in. But these are the headlines, what you're looking at right now. Troubled Miami Seaquarium ordered to close after high-profile deaths. County terminates lease with Miami Seaquarium after safety of animals questioned. We've got another caller, Michelle in Los Angeles. Your question or thought for Amanda Brody of People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals.
Hi. Well, thank you so much for everything that you've done to make this happen. I have two questions. What was the response from the Seaquarium, and what is the response from the public after this happened?
Yeah, the Miami Seaquarium continued to deny the clear animal cruelty that was happening at its park, which you can see in all of the USDA violations that have just continued to rack up from the USDA. But on the other hand, the public has been celebrating the fact that this dump is being closed. It's really a stain on South Florida. You know, we're talking more than half of a century of animals suffering. Of course, we all know Lolita the orca suffered there for 53 years, but more than 100 other dolphins have also died at the Miami Seaquarium. And most recently, at the beginning of this year, a dolphin named Sundance passed away. So the public is showing that they're overseeing these highly intelligent, sensitive social beings being trapped in tiny concrete tanks for our entertainment.
Let's talk about the big picture, how the evolution of this occurred. Back in 2013, the film Blackfish, which was shown on CNN, had a massive impact. Gabrielle Copperthwaite was the director, and basically she went into this whole subject as just a mom trying to show her kids a good time and discovered the darker truths of aquariums in general. This had a huge, huge impact. And then you had these protests kicking up. specifically directed at Miami Seaquarium, but also there were protests against SeaWorld. And so it's kind of an evolution for people who get frustrated. These things don't happen overnight. It's a process, not an event. I personally believe this is historic in nature, right up there with the closure of Ringling Brothers Barnum and Bailey Circus when it used animals. And there were protests for decades before then, and people thought it would never end. I covered a protest in, I think, late 2014 in the dead of winter against Ringlings. And, thanks to PETA, wow, Ringlings is coming back or has come back without animals. So, can these aquariums reinvent to come back without animals? And B, how big is this announcement in history, the history of animal rights, Amanda?
This announcement is huge. It really shows that the public is turning away from seeing these amazing creatures being held captive for our entertainment. And we saw with Blackfish, that was such a huge documentary that really changed things for animals and basically forced SeaWorld to end its cruel and reckless orca breeding program. And so with the world watching as Lolita tragically passed away in the world's smallest orca tank, and now with Miami Seaquarium closing its doors, all eyes are on SeaWorld to do what is right, especially for Corky, who is one of the saddest and loneliest orcas. She has been in captivity for more than 54 years. Her story is similar to Lolita, as she was abducted from her ocean home and forced to live in tiny tanks and perform tricks for her entire life. So we want to make sure that people are looking to SeaWorld and urging them to send Corky to a seaside sanctuary. And these amusement parks can revamp themselves to be viable without animals. They can teach people about these animals without keeping them in tiny concrete tanks and create seaside sanctuaries for the animals they have long exploited.
Absolutely. We got another caller, Lindsay in Woodland Hills. Your question or thought for PETA's Amanda Brody.
Yes, I do have a thought. I am so grateful for your work, first of all, the work that PETA is doing. I wanted to just say, from my experience, for parents who think it's great to bring their children to these live animal events, when I was a child, I always loved animals, and I can remember feeling extremely sad and disappointed going into these venues because as a child, you are aware that there's something awry. I knew that something was wrong. I didn't understand what it was because it was so hyped of all these happy animals, jumping around and loving the whole thing going on. But in reality, it is not the case. So parents, please teach your children not to participate in animal cruelty, which this is, and educate them, but please, this is not the way to educate your children about animal behavior. Thank you.
Absolutely. Out of the mouths of babes, right? They often know.
Yeah, there's really nothing educational about watching sad, lonely animals swim in tiny, endless circles and be forced to perform tricks for food. You're not learning anything. If anything, they're teaching their kids that it's okay to keep animals captive and deny them of everything that's important and natural to them. And kids are naturally empathetic. They can see that this is wrong. So the best way to teach our kids about animals is to respect them, learn about these animals in nature or from a documentary. There's no reason why anyone should think going to SeaWorld or Miami Seaquarium is educational in any way, because it's not.
Yes. And this brings back so many memories to me, not only attending that protest in 2015 that was huge and speaking there, but also I was in the Miami airport and an official, basically somebody who moves the people around when we're going through security, was saying to everybody, visit SeaWorld. And I confronted him and I was like, you work for the government. You can't promote a private company that is this controversial. But it was almost like it was part of the government structure of these aquariums. And it really frightened me. But I think that's changing because it was really the government that is throwing them out because they lease from the county. So it was really the Miami-Dade Commission, the county commission, that has said, get the hell out. which is a real sea change from when I was down there, a decade ago, and they were using people in government uniforms to urge people to go to these seaquariums.
Yeah, it just shows how much has changed in honestly a short amount of time. And it just shows how important it is for us to keep speaking up, tell everyone never ever buy a ticket to these places because that's what keeps them open. Everyone needs to know that these animals do not belong in these tiny concrete tanks. Especially at SeaWorld, these animals are going insane from their cramped living spaces. They have to have anxiety medication given to them so that they don't they have all this stress from the extreme captivity. They break their teeth by biting on the metal bars and concrete sides of their tanks. People need to know these things because they may not see that when they go. And that's why it just shows the importance of every person speaking out for these animals and encouraging everyone they know to never buy a ticket.
Now, according to a major newspaper, The Guardian, it also says, and I'm just quoting here again, we invite the Seaquarium on at any time to respond to any of this. The park was behind in $180,000 in rent, the county alleged. And the most recent blow, the Seaquarium's head veterinarian resigned last month. And this news raises even more concern about the conditions and safety of the animals currently under their care, said a public official. So, wow. I mean, I'm wondering why the heck did it have to get to this point where animals are losing, their eyes in severe pain. It's almost like it has to get to a point where it's so over the top that then there's action taken. That's what's so frustrating. You, PETA, have been screaming at the top of your lungs for decades that there was something wrong here. And now it's, 2024 and it's finally happening. Wow.
Yeah, the issues really just kept piling up for the Miami Seaquarium, especially towards the beginning of this year. As I mentioned, a dolphin named Sundance passed away, and they continued to rack up violations from the USDA. And so, yeah, it really took everyone. Local activists have been battering the Miami Seaquarium for decades. There's a group that goes out every single Sunday and protests, and all of those efforts are really got us to where we are today. And we are very happy that the days of the animals being exploited at the Miami Seaquarium are numbered, and soon that place is going to be done and dusted.
How many animals do you think are still there? And are there sanctuaries? I mean, it's not easy. It's easier. So it can be very difficult to transport a pig or a cow to a sanctuary, but a dolphin might be even more. A sea lion. Do you have places for these animals to go? And how many of them are there?
Yeah, there are still hundreds of animals at the Miami Seaquarium, and they're all in desperate need of help. It's a really critical and dire situation, which is why PETA really had amped up the pressure at the beginning of this year, protesting outside of the Miami-Dade mayor's office for several weeks straight, because while they had stated that they were putting plans in place to terminate the lease, we wanted to make sure it was set in stone. And that decision had just come about 2 weeks ago. So PETA is urging the county to make sure that they are involved in those conversations about where these animals are going to go. PETA stands ready to assist them. We want to make sure that these animals are going to reputable facilities and that they're not going to similar or worse environments. Ideally, of course, they would go to a seaside sanctuary, but while we wait for those facilities to be created, which we encourage companies like Miami Seaquarium to build, since they're the ones who have exploited these animals for decades and profited off of their exploitation, while we wait for those facilities to be built, we want them to go to a proper facility that can give them the care that they need.
Again, this is breaking news. This is probably the biggest animal rights news in terms of animals in captivity for entertainment, so-called entertainment, since Ringling Brothers Barnum and Bailey shut down and has now reportedly reemerged without animals. They said we could never do a circus without animals. Excuse me. Yes, they can. And they can do aquariums without animals too. I get upset. Annie, your question or thought?
Hi, yes. Thank you so much, PETA, and all the activists that had been, and Jane. Wow, this is incredible news. I'm so overly excited. What are the chances of this spreading to all the aquariums from SeaWorld that's around the world, unfortunately, for people to awake and be aware of this? I know Blackfish is one huge documentary that is powerful, but also people knowing that Taiji Island steals these babies, and Seaquarium and all of the marine land, every one of them lie that they rescue them. They literally go attack the family and steal the babies. If they watch what's going on in Taiji, Japan, that they literally force
What is
them
your
into the
question,
store.
Annie?
And my question is, what are the chances? How can we spread this? That SeaWorld and all the aquariums, all the zoos could close up and return these animals back to their nature or into sanctuaries.
Okay,
How can we do this?
It's a great question, but unfortunately, I don't think it works that way where everybody wakes up and they're evolved and suddenly we have no zoos or all zoos have been turned into sanctuaries. I know when I lived in New York, I now live in LA, and people would ask me, I'd be in Central Park, which way is the zoo? I said, I'm not going to tell you. It's not a place you should take your children. And it will only traumatize your children, as I was traumatized going to the Central Park Zoo when I was a child, dragged there by my parents who were well-meaning. But I would look at the seals in this little enclosure, and I could tell even as a 7-year-old that they were absolutely miserable. So for any parents who try to justify this, because that's how they justify it. I've heard people, even people who are supposedly, conservationists, saying we're trying to open an aquarium here for the kids. This isn't going to help the kids. And we're in the 21st century where we can have virtual experiences with goggles where we can swim, or there are 3D theaters where we feel like we're swimming with the dolphins. So we don't need to imprison these animals. It's so hard, though, to see progress in real time. And when these big moments occur, that's when we can celebrate, because it's like the payoff. All these people, who it's not easy to get painted up and to go into these protests. I traveled from New York to Miami for this particular protest. All these people really, really working hard to make this happen. And this was 9 years ago. The people you're watching marching, this happened 9 years ago. And, they're getting the payoff now. So that's what's great about PETA. You are relentless and you don't give up. Talk about that.
Yeah, this comes after decades of PETA protesting, but also using a lot of other forms of activism through celebrity ad campaigns and even lawsuits on behalf of Lolita. But this historic news, it's making headlines worldwide. So people are paying attention to this. And I would be hard pressed to believe that SeaWorld isn't also paying attention to this. So SeaWorld has also recently focused on rides and events. So it can be a theme park without animals. It just needs to start the transition and build seaside sanctuaries, move these animals to seaside sanctuaries, and be a theme park that teaches people about marine animals without keeping them in captivity, because it's clearly that's not what the public wants, especially seeing Miami Seaquarium shutting down.
Yes, and they can use the high-tech methods, the goggles, the 3D images. I mean, they've got these things all over the place. That's what they need to transition to. SeaWorld, if you're watching, make the transition now so you don't go the way of Miami Seaquarium. Get ahead of the curve. Sam in Pasadena, your question or thought for People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals. Sam?
Or bringing this to... Hello, hi. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, hi, Jane. Thank you for bringing this important news to us, and thank you, PETA, and congratulations for such a great win for the animals. This is a momentous win. This is great. My question is, from this win...
What happened? We lost you.
Campaign and...
You're going in and out. Just say it again.
Because of it was so effective to show the inhumanity that the animals have been treated. Will there be any additional campaigns that are targeted against SeaWorld going from now on? And also from this event, from the closure of the aquariums, are there any legislation, like local and federal legislation, that will be proposed in something that will be done to these places or to the care of the animals or anything like that? Thank you.
Good question. What's the follow-up?
Well, PETA definitely has its eyes set on SeaWorld, and specifically Corky, who is even older than Lolita, and she's been trapped for more than 54 years. And she is currently at SeaWorld San Diego. She was abducted from the ocean also when she was just 4 years old and was sold into captivity and has been used as a breeding machine for years. She was bred with her own cousin 6 times, and none of her babies survived past 47 days. Her story is tragic, but the good news is that a seaside sanctuary is already being prepared for her by a team of experts off the coast of British Columbia, which is where she was abducted from. So it's time for SeaWorld to send Corky to a seaside sanctuary before it's too late for her, and to take note that places like Miami Seaquarium are shutting down, and the public doesn't want to see these intelligent animals stuck in these tiny tanks.
Yeah, and I just want to say we're getting a lot of comments. Here's one. PETA's been a recipient of smear campaigns. What's your take? I'll tell you what my take is. I've worked with PETA since pretty much the inception, and I have attended events where there's protesters, and I say, oh, what is I went up to somebody who had a sign, and I said, well, what's your take on it? What do you mean? They had no knowledge because they were paid to be there. They were paid to be there. PETA is the target because it's so effective. All these industries that are threatened by PETA target them. So don't listen to that BS. I've followed them from the beginning, and what they do is they lie. I remember they said, oh, Ingrid Newkirk drives around in a Mercedes. Well, she actually drives a smart car, which is like probably the most, at the time, drives a smart car. It happened to be made by Mercedes, but it's like the most modest car you could possibly get. I think it's only got 2 seats and it's a tiny car. This is the kind of stuff they make up. So don't listen to that nonsense. I can tell you, as a journalist who has covered PETA and reported on PETA for as long as it's been in existence practically, that it's clearly the most effective animal rights organization in the world. That's why they target them. And I don't know if you want to add anything to that, but that's my take.
Yeah, I mean, we're going up against huge industries and telling them that what they're doing is wrong. And also people too. We are unapologetically a vegan, abolitionist animal rights organization. So a lot of people might not understand our positions. So then sometimes people get offended, and that's where those things come from. But what I love about PETA is, like you said, we're relentless. We're here for the animals, and we're gonna continue on and do what's best to make sure that everyone knows that animals are not ours for anything, for entertainment, for food, for clothing, or for any other reason. And that's why I love PETA.
And I'll say something else. You have at one point, I think it was 19 lawyers. It could be more than that, working on numerous campaigns simultaneously. Just a couple of weeks ago, I interviewed another PETA member, about a monkey facility, okay? And PETA is working hard to stop the largest monkey breeding facility in the world that is being plotted in Georgia, in Decatur County, Georgia. And this is another thing. If PETA hadn't been on its toes, they could have slipped through without anybody knowing it, because they allegedly held secret meetings, and the local community is now suing because they say they violated the open meeting law. And none of that would have come out if it weren't for PETA. So one of the things I'll also say is that PETA issues very serious news releases all the time. And one of the reasons I started Unchained TV after more than 30 years in mainstream media is that I know that the serious animal rights issues are not covered by mainstream media the way they should be. And then, so you do something a little bit more, you get into a costume, something to attract attention, and then they make fun of you for wearing a costume. So, the point is, when you're put in a no-win position, you've got to ask yourself why. Why are people so threatened by the information that People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals is making available to the public? So that's my 2 cents right there. I'm a huge fan of PETA's, and I will always be. Sarah in Larchmont Village, your question or thought for People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals?
Hi, thank you. I definitely like to support PETA myself, and I always say, instead of saying PETA, I say People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals, because you should be for the ethical treatment. If you're not, then what are you for? But yeah, my question is, I want to know what's happening to the sea mammals that are there, because I heard already some dolphins got sold to some other aquariums, and I heard that there's a bunch of different countries that are trying to buy these dolphins and other animals at the Miami Seaquarium, and I want to know who is trying to say that they're allowed to sell them. And I know that like people are not supposed to own animals, but what is the deal with the animals? Like, who says that they have a right to do what you know, like, what are they trying to control them? Like, what's going to happen to the animals? Thank you.
Go for it.
The dolphin company, I believe, it owns these animals. Of course, we wish that no one owned these animals, but we are turning towards the Miami-Dade County to ensure that they are involved in these conversations and make sure that these animals can go to reputable facilities. And PETA is ready to assist them. We want to see these animals go to seaside sanctuaries once those are built. But the good news is that Miami Seaquarium is shutting its doors, and that's one less place that can exploit these animals. This is almost 70 years of animal abuse that has been happening at Miami Seaquarium, and we now know that no more animals are going to be brought into this basically hellhole for animals. So it is something to celebrate, but we are watching closely to see where the current animals are going to go, and PETA is ready to assist to make sure that they go somewhere where they finally have basic veterinary care, which is not something that they have been provided at Miami Seaquarium.
All right, Tiffany in LA, your question or thought for Amanda Brody of PETA.
Thank you for taking my call, and it's also similar to the last caller. Is there anyone can they sell these animals to SeaWorld now, or is there an actual sea rescue that's available to take them, or is there anyone watching over where the animals will be going? Thank you.
Yeah, similar to what I just mentioned is the Miami-Dade County, and so I would encourage anyone to go to PETA.org and maybe give the Miami-Dade County mayor a call and tell them your concerns over where these animals are going to end up. But just seeing that they have taken action and they are terminating this lease, which was based off of the cruelty to animals they were seeing happen at Miami Seaquarium. PETA is confident that the county is doing what it can to ensure that these animals go to a proper facility, and we're ready to help them when they call on us, and we'll do our best to be involved in that process.
2-inch nail found in dolphin's throat. I mean, can you talk a little bit about the depth of this?
Yeah, this was a citation they received from the USDA that a dolphin was found with a 2-inch nail, mangrove pods, and pieces of shell stuck in his throat. And this just happened. This report came out earlier this year, and that was the same report that also said that a guest kicked a dolphin in the face during an interaction. And these are just the things that are being documented by the USDA. So who knows what's happening at this facility when they're not there?
You know, I think it's very important to sometimes step back and try to look at the big picture, because it is very hard to see progress in real time. And there are momentous events. I would look back, for example, at the suffragette movement. The momentous event was when women got the right to vote. But there were a lot of other smaller events leading up to women's suffrage. And it's like that. There are these moments in history where you go, aha, this is a breakthrough. This is a breakthrough. I honestly feel, covering this whole issue day in and day out, that when Blackfish came out, that was huge. That was definitely a seminal moment in this movement. And in terms of the big picture, when Ringling's closed with animals, now it's reopened without animals. That was another. This is a third big one in terms of animals being used for entertainment. So where do we go from here as a society? How do we get to the point where animals are not used anymore in entertainment? I mean, when it comes to films, my gosh, we've got CGI. We don't need to use real animals. But yet, real animals are still being used. And there's so much controversy over whether organizations that are supposedly watching those animals are in bed with the people they're supposed to monitor. So, what do you think is the next big breakthrough so that hopefully, God willing, in my lifetime, unlike Rob and Camille, we can say we've put this issue of animals being exploited for entertainment to bed once and for all?
Yeah, it's so important to celebrate these wins because it's important for us to continue to speak out, and then we see that we do have these victories. But this is so monumentous that I see that this is really just a continuation of the public showing that they don't want to see animals used for entertainment. I believe that we're going to see the end to the cruel and deadly Iditarod dog sled race very, very soon. Basically, there's hardly any animals used in circuses anymore. Universal Circus just announced that they are no longer going to use animals, and PETA has its eyes set on shrine circuses. And as long as we continue to speak out for these animals and tell the public who may still be considering attending that these animals are whipped, they're chained, they are denied everything that's important and natural to them, you should instead be going to any sort of entertainment that's used with willing human participants instead. It's a no-brainer. And as long as we keep speaking up, we're going to keep seeing these changes for animals.
Absolutely. And I'd like to throw in rodeos as well. We are currently in Los Angeles pushing for a ban on rodeos. And there was a very confrontational hearing outside at LA City Hall, which involved a whole bunch of people on horseback, and it was a melee practically. So please, when you're trying to eliminate animals in entertainment, include the rodeo, as I know PETA does, very much so, but also those who are watching. There are efforts all across the country to eliminate rodeos, from Madison Square Garden to the big stadium over here, the crypto stadium. Unfortunately, they're still happening. And so we've got to be hyper vigilant. So let me ask you, down there in Florida, you live in that area where these abusement parks are. How do we change the culture? Or do you see the culture changing? Unfortunately, going back to that 2015 video, if you watch, there was a pan to basically a bus full of tourists that appeared to be heading toward Miami Seaquarium, and everybody started shouting, don't go, which you can't hear. But what's happening with the culture down there?
Thankfully, since I have been working on this campaign the last 4 years, it was very clear across the board that South Floridians were against Miami Seaquarium. We always had a positive response. I think at that point, Blackfish had been out for a while. People were learning of Lolita's story and how she was kept in this small tank for over 50 years. And the parking lot was almost empty every single time, honestly. And we would be out there encouraging people to turn around, notifying them of the cruelty to animals that is going on at that park. And we were successful in getting cars to turn around. And there was a local group that was there every single Sunday speaking out for these animals. And it just shows that their efforts were not in vain. And it's so happy that now the Miami Seaquarium is closing its doors.
All right, and for those just joining us, I'm going to play 2015 when I spoke at a protest against Miami Seaquarium, as well as Donnie Moss of theirturn.net, and Robin Camille, the last person who sort of sang and spoke. Tragically, she died before seeing this beautiful development. She would be very happy. Hopefully, she's up there somewhere with Lolita, and they're both celebrating.
Seaquarium is on the wrong side of history. Lolita is in danger.
animals around the world who are being held captive against their will for the name of entertainment. These animals exist for their own purposes. They were not put on this earth to entertain us.
Amen.
It's time to let this girl. She's been held too long. I said it's time. You know it's time to let Miss Lolita go home. Let the girl go. Free Lolita. Free Lolita. Let the girl go.
And I'd like to dedicate this broadcast to Robin Camille, the last woman who sang and spoke there. She had written a song called Free Lolita, Let the Girl Go, which she sang at that protest I attended. It just completely energized the crowd. People were marching and singing the song. We became close friends, and tragically, she died before being able to see this day. And I just like to dedicate what an amazing activist, using her gift of song to help protesters galvanize people. And Robin Camille, you would be so happy to know this. And rest in peace, Robin Camille. Rest in peace, Lolita. And it just makes me double down to keep going, relentless, just like people for the ethical treatment of animals. So what is on the horizon? What is the next step for PETA as this situation continues to unfold? We know that the company has until April 21st, 1 month and 1 day from today, to basically relinquish and leave. Well, that's not a lot of time to get hundreds of animals out.
Yeah, PETA will certainly be watching closely, and we will be there on their last day of business and watching closely to see where these animals are going. PETA stands ready to assist them in making sure that these animals go to reputable facilities, but also our eyes are on SeaWorld, and we're urging SeaWorld to send Corky to a seaside sanctuary before it's too late for her. There were plans in place to send Lolita to a seaside sanctuary, but those plans came too late. But it's not too late for Corky. She is older than Lolita, and she is now the orca who has been held captive the longest. So time is running out for her. A seaside sanctuary is already being prepared for Corky. So we're going to be protesting SeaWorld and urging them to send Corky to a seaside sanctuary.
Now, there are those who say, well, it's very complicated and it's not practical to move these animals to seaside sanctuaries. What's your response to that?
Yeah, of course, we would want a team of experts to be involved in the moving of these animals. But what's important to know is that SeaWorld does transfer these animals around the world. In fact, they shipped dolphins to their park in Abu Dhabi, and these were dolphins who they claim to have rescued and rehabilitated. So SeaWorld's already doing this. It just shows where their priorities lie. So it's going to take us, the public, to pressure SeaWorld, talk to everyone you know, tell them to never visit SeaWorld or Miami Seaquarium while it's still open, and teach them about these animals and that they do not belong in concrete tanks.
And Halise Cleveland says, when I was growing up, I knew a lot about dinosaurs despite never seeing them doing unnatural tricks in an unnatural environment. Yeah, that is such a tired argument, but people still pull that card because they're hiding behind children, which I think is cowardly.
Yeah, I mentioned before, there's really nothing educational when you go to a place like Miami Seaquarium or SeaWorld. These animals are sad and lonely. They've spent their lives swimming in endless circles. Sometimes they're given anti-anxiety drugs from the stress of extreme captivity. You're not learning anything by going to these abusement parks, as PETA calls it. It's 2024. You can learn about these animals by watching documentaries, going on the internet. And thankfully here in Florida, you can just go out to the beach and potentially see a dolphin in the wild there. And no one is being exploited for that.
So where should people go instead? Because you see people with their kids, you know, and basically they feel they've got to show their kids a good time. I mean, what could kids do? What could parents do with their kids instead of going to SeaWorld?
They can just go to the beach, especially if they're visiting Florida, where we have SeaWorld Orlando, unfortunately, and also Miami Seaquarium, which is soon to be closed. But the beach is right there. I know I went to the beach on the west coast of Florida, and I was lucky enough to see dolphins in the wild, and it was one of the most beautiful experiences because I knew they were living their life as they pleased. They weren't being exploited and forced to perform tricks. Miami Seaquarium in the past starved dolphins in order to force them to perform tricks for food. I always like to remind people that when they go to places like this, when they leave at the end, they get to leave at the end of the day, but those animals are trapped there pretty much for their entire lives and they never get to leave. It's not okay, and it's animal abuse. It's no way to learn about these animals or respect them.
And I just want to say, we only have a couple of minutes left, that for people who are upset about this, get involved. Go to PETA.org. Once again, you can call, what did you say, the mayor's office? So if you go to PETA.org and follow the links, you can call the mayor's office and let them know, because we're right at the, I don't know anything about football, but like the 5-yard line. Yes, it's closing. That's great news. But where do those animals go? We don't want to drop the ball right now. So what would you urge people to do?
You can go to PETA.org and send a very nice email or call the Miami-Dade mayor's office and tell them that you want to make sure that they're overseeing this process of where these animals are going and that they're going to go to reputable facilities and to involve PETA in that process. And of course, while you're at PETA.org, there's many other ways that you can take action for animals.
I can tell you that I'm a very busy person because I'm running an entire streaming network. People think I have dozens or maybe hundreds of people, and there's a streaming network right behind me, which is absolutely free. We'll tell you about that in a second. But whatever I'm doing, when I get an email from PETA, because I'm signed up for their texts and their emails, I stop whatever I'm doing and I take that action because I know that it's going to be short and I know that it's going to be an action point and it's going to take me somewhere that's going to send a message that's going to be part of the solution. So I urge everybody to sign up to get PETA alerts. You get them on your phone. You go, boom, yes, boom. It's so fast and it's so effective. And that's why PETA is the most effective animal rights organization in the world. So we've only got 3 minutes. I want to tell everybody who's watching about Unchained TV, okay? And tell you that basically, after more than 30 years in mainstream media, I started Unchained TV because, with few exceptions like Blackfish, I was working at CNN when Blackfish was shown, and I was thrilled. But generally, the mainstream media does not cover this to the point where they should. And so we have the world's only streaming network for animal rights. It is 100% free, and you can download it for free on your phone, on any Samsung smart TV, and you can also download it on any TV via your Amazon Fire Stick, your Roku device, or your Apple TV device. And you can also watch it online at unchainedtv.com. And I just want to show you, there it is behind me. Right behind me, we have about, 2,000 videos. 2,000 videos. PETA has its own channel on Unchained TV, happy to say. And basically, it's a very, very a good way to get information out. You can actually text this video, for example. Let me straighten that out. You could actually text this video to anybody. We're watching it right now, and boom, you could text this video once you download it on your phone to anybody. Let's say you have a friend in Miami. Okay, so we're free. We're nonprofit. It's mostly volunteer run. I'm a volunteer. I don't take a salary. And so just go to your app store on your phone for starters and download it. Unchained TV, one word. I urge all of you to do that because while we are trying to reach those who are not yet on the bandwagon with us fighting for animals, we need that base support of all the animal lovers to establish this as a global streaming network. We were just featured in People magazine, USA Today, and a slew of other magazines. And so we're getting there. Thank you for downloading Unchained TV and being part of the solution. And also, please support People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals, an absolutely crucial organization, the most effective animal organization on the planet, bar none, just doing incredible, incredible work. And let's make sure that we close Miami Seaquarium once and for all and get all of those 100 animals to sanctuary. Thank you so much, Amanda Brody, for joining us. See you next time here on Unchained TV.
Thank you.